It's a sick joke to believe that it's right, which it is, to impose sanctions on Russia for its unlawful invasion of Ukraine, yet we're meant to believe that tut-tutting Benjamin Netanyahu and telling everyone that we think this is really bad somehow cuts the mustard. It doesn't. Words aren't enough to stop war crimes. We need more than words. We need more than actions. So can the Minister advise this House how many more Gazans need to be killed by Israel, injured by Israel, starved by Israel, until the government does the right thing and brings widespread sanctions in like it's done on Russia, because people think we're scared and people think it's double standards.
You know, every time British Prime Minister Keir Starmer or his minions were asked in the past why they are not calling the Israeli atrocities in Gaza a genocide, they replied each time with their repetitive line that it's not their job to declare what constitutes a genocide, adding that this is the job of courts like the International Court of Justice, and they will respect whatever these international bodies decide. But we learned today that Starmer and his minions have been simply telling lies to protect Israeli terrorists. And why are we not surprised? It took a couple of brave and upright British MPs in the Parliament today to expose the real face of the Labour government headed by Starmer. Earlier today, Starmer was asked during the Prime Minister's questions about the dire humanitarian situation in Gaza caused by Israeli blockade in breach of international humanitarian laws. His response was, the same old nonsense. It's intolerable, but we can't do much about it, even though we have powers to stop the genocide.
But turning to the Middle East now, Mr. Speaker, for more than 10 weeks, Israeli forces have blocked food, water and medicine getting into Gaza. There is now a humanitarian catastrophe with 2 million people at risk of famine and 1 in 5 facing starvation. Rather than ending this crisis, the Netanyahu government is planning to seize all Gaza indefinitely. Now, I know the Prime Minister will agree that the blockade to Gaza should end, and I'm sure he would agree that it would be appalling if Netanyahu proceeds with that escalation. But will he act now and pick up the phone to President Trump for a joint plan to recognise Palestine and get food, water and medicine into Gaza?
Prime Minister.
Well, I thank him for raising this, because the situation in Gaza is simply intolerable and getting worse. And we are working with other leaders urgently to bring about rapid and unimpeded flow of humanitarian aid into Gaza, which is desperately needed, obviously alongside the release of hostages, and to get back to a ceasefire, and that work is going on through my team 24/7. I do believe that is the initial action that needs to be taken, but I still fundamentally believe that, however remote it may seem at the moment, the pathway to a two-state solution is the only way for settled and lasting peace in the Middle East, and we will continue with our allies to pursue that path.
Moments later, Starmer's junior minister, Hamish Faulkner, admitted for the first time that his government had failed the people of Gaza.
As I told this House yesterday, Israel's denial of aid is appalling. Tons of food are currently sitting, rotting at the Gaza-Israel border, blocked from reaching people who are starving. Israeli ministers have said Israel's decision to block this aid is a pressure lever. This is cruel and it is indefensible. Overnight, yet more Palestinians have been killed in Israeli strikes. This must end. The message yesterday was clear. The world demands Israel stop and change course immediately. With our allies, we are telling the government of Israel, lift the block on aid entering Gaza now. Enable the UN and all humanitarians to save lives now. We need an immediate ceasefire now.
We, as a signatory to the Geneva Convention, have a legal obligation to prevent a genocide from taking place. Minister, when will we act?
Madam Deputy Speaker, the member for Sheffield Central, my friend, is a very forceful advocate on these questions, and she points to failure, and I recognise that failure, that we are still so many months on, so many days on, with the people of Gaza, the people of West Bank, and of course the hostages in the most distressing possible circumstances. I won't comment from this dispatch box on sanctions as she would expect, but I can assure her that we will be working urgently with our allies and partners on further pressure to make Israel change course.
However, his stunning admission of guilt meant absolutely nothing when it soon emerged that he too was being economical with the truth. And I'm being polite here. He too said that it wasn't his government's job to determine if Israeli atrocities in Gaza amounted to a genocide. But soon, Scottish National Party's Brendan O'Hara embarrassed the junior minister by exposing the Labour government. He bluntly told the truth on how the UK government, led by Starmer, had told the High Court that Israel was not guilty of committing a genocide in Gaza. What a shameless bunch of politicians running the government in the UK. Watch the powerful intervention made by Brendan O'Hara.
Brendan O'Hara.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I have just returned from the High Court this morning, where his government's lawyers will argue, when defending the continued supply of F-35 components, that, and I quote, "The evidence available does not support a finding of genocide, and certainly there is a tenable view that no genocide has occurred or is occurring." So, Minister, it appears your government, whether it's told you or not, has already made a determination. And that would explain, I believe, why there is no intention to have an independent assessment of whether a genocide is likely, because the government knows that were they so to do, they would be revealing an unpalatable truth, a truth which would then prevent them from supplying Israel with the weapons that it needs to continue its merciless onslaught. It really is as grubby as that, Minister, isn't it?
Independent MP Ayub Khan, he too joined in to highlight the shamelessness of this government.
Madam Deputy Speaker, we've had truly shocking statements in this chamber. The Foreign Minister suggested that not enough Palestinians had been killed in order to constitute a genocide. The Prime Minister stated that although he understood the definition of genocide, he didn't refer to it as a genocide. The Minister repeats that this is a matter for international court. If that is the case, why are the government lawyers making submissions, advancing submissions, that no genocide has been conducted when it comes to the sale of the F-35 parts?
Labour MP from Leeds, from Starmer's own party, Richard Burgon, didn't mince words when he highlighted the glaring double standard of Starmer in relation to Gaza. Have a listen to him.
Richard Burgon.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm sick and tired of coming back to this chamber, asking the same questions, getting the same answers, when war crime after war crime is being committed and when a genocide is taking place. And it's a sick joke to believe that it's right, which it is, to impose sanctions on Russia for its unlawful invasion of Ukraine, yet we're meant to believe that tutting Benjamin Netanyahu and telling everyone that we think this is really bad somehow cuts the mustard. It doesn't. Words aren't enough to stop war crimes. We need more than words. We need more than actions. So can the Minister advise this House how many more Gazans need to be killed by Israel, injured by Israel, starved by Israel, until the government does the right thing and brings widespread sanctions in like it's done on Russia, because people think we're scared and people think it's double standards?
Shaukat Adam, another independent MP from Leicester, echoed the same sentiments.
Shaukat Adam.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. 3 weeks ago, whilst I was in the West Bank, I spoke to a young Palestinian refugee mother with tears in her eyes, asked me, why has the world forgotten us? My response then has been echoed today. We, as the world, haven't forgotten them, but what we have done is failed them completely. And the failure looks like this. The United Nations has now confirmed that every single day, over 100 children have been killed or injured since March. Imagine that as our children. So can I ask the Minister, if, God forbid, if 100 European children were being killed every single day, or God forbid, 100 Israeli children were being killed every single day, would we be supplying even a penknife to the perpetrators of this crime, yes or no?
It's clear. History will never forgive Starmer and his Foreign Secretary David Lammy for their willful participation in the ongoing genocide of Palestinians by Israeli terrorists. I hope these politicians face the force of law one day, even though I'm not very hopeful about it. But more importantly, what kind of sick society we now live in, where it's acceptable for these politicians from a so-called civilized country to defend the brutal slaughtering of innocent children and babies. Yes, that's what it is. The likes of Starmer and Lammy are effectively defending the murder of children and babies. From Amnesty International to International Court of Justice to several UN bodies and UN experts, all have called it a genocide. But Keir Starmer and his ministers will simply not accept it. What are we discussing here? 2.1 million people in 2025 are being forced to starve to death. They've been holed up in an open concentration camp called Gaza. No food should be supplied in. No food, no medicine, no water is being allowed in. This is bloody 2025. There are rogue politicians in 2025 in the so-called civilized country denying that this is not a genocide. What is this then? The entire infrastructure has been bulldozed. Not a single hospital is functioning. Not a single school, college is functioning. Every single building has been bombed using American and UK bombs. But this is not a genocide. Have an aerial photo. It's available on Google of how Gaza looks like now. For these compromised politicians to understand. I'm sure they know the truth. But if they accept the truth, it will be an embarrassment for their masters in Israel. Whatever their compulsions are. I mean, this is a genocide that has been live streamed to our mobile devices in the last 19 months. This is a genocide that ministers of Israeli government have flaunted from public platforms. Even they are not denying. Members of the IDF have showcased their brutal actions on social media. So they have been proud of. And yet, the UK government tells the court that Israel is not committing a genocide. You can see the irony. The people who were directly committing the brutalities, they are not denying, but their servants in the US and particularly in the UK are there to shield them, to protect them. I think we are fools. Wonder how Starmer and Lammy managed to sleep at night. Shame on you, Starmer. Shame on you, Lammy. Thank you very much for your support of our journalism on buymeacoffee.com and Patreon. If you too think that our journalism is worth supporting, then you too should consider becoming part of it. Details are there in the description of this video. In the meantime, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.